My own background and experience includes corporate training, CEO of family retail business, and of course, corporate training at SUNY Orange and career services at SUNY Orange. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services. We'll get right into it here with the two biggest blunders that are committed in terms of the job search, and that would be using a resume template and using job boards as the primary job search tool. In a minute, we're going to look at what to do instead in terms of job boards, but just in terms of the template, we really like not to use them, and they can be very restrictive and actually keep you from doing some things that you're going to want to do. That's one of the reasons we don't like them. What we do like is keeping it simple, like a Word doc. And this affords you a lot of flexibility. You want to keep it easy on the eye. You can see that example that I put up there has a lot of white space. That's good. You can use little color accents or fine, but generally we try to keep it kind of very basic and simple. You definitely want to make sure that it looks pretty good on a phone. You know that a lot of HR people are going to be looking at it on a phone, so you want to make sure that it works that way. And you're definitely going to want to convert your final draft to a PDF so it maintains its structure. A format that I'm very fond of is starting off with a profile, which is, in a minute, we'll talk about personal branding and personal branding statements, and then a summary of qualifications, and then significant accomplishments, and then professional or work experience, followed by education, additional qualifications, additional activities, and volunteer experience. I just told you all the things that would be possible. You don't necessarily have to use all of them, and you shouldn't even feel pressured to use all of them. Those are just the ones that you could use if you have all those things. Okay, so two things you're going to want to be armed with for your job search in addition to the resume are a LinkedIn profile and possibly an infographic resume. So first question for you guys, how many of you are on LinkedIn with the LinkedIn profile right now? I'll give you a minute.
In the chat if you'd like. Or do a thumbs up using your nonverbals.
And if you aren't, of course, that's fine. I wasn't really into it myself until fairly recently, maybe 4 years ago or so. And I was kind of a reluctant joiner. I wasn't looking for a job. I'm not looking for a job, so I didn't really need it for that purpose. But I saw that all these people were trying to link with me, and I thought, gee, this really must be something to this. And so I just put up a very kind of basic profile. And now, I don't know, I must have 500 or 600 or 700 people I'm linked with, not even trying, just by responding to people wanting to link. So you get any answers there, Dana?
Sure, we have a number of people saying yes, but also a good number of folks indicating that they are, but not completely set up, perhaps, which is the catch-22 of LinkedIn. It is not static.
Right. Well, the good news as far as LinkedIn goes, they have great tutorials. The things on their website and the people that they use on their website to do the trainings are just awesome. So you can really get tremendous direction just by going there. The infographic resume, I'll kind of give you a disclaimer on that. I'm saying it's an essential tool. It's not necessarily an essential tool. If you can get hired without doing an infographic resume, great. But I know that to me, it's really an ace in the hole and sort of a secret weapon. And whenever I'm working with somebody and it's a little challenging for them to get connected, get interviews, That's the first thing I would turn to, is an infographic resume. That's an example of one right there. There's a couple of reasons why they work so well. Number one, it simply shows initiative. If you go to the trouble of creating one, it looks like you're on the ball and making an effort. Number two, it allows you a great deal of flexibility. It's very free form. You can kind of put anything you want in there. And this is a time when you do want to use a template. There's a lot of great templates out there. Career Sherpa is one. You're going to see that website in a few minutes. They have a bunch of templates that are really good. Another reason we like them is because it allows you to include a testimonial. Letters of reference and references and all that are great, but nothing's quite as good as a really killer testimonial by somebody who really knows you. Okay. So we're big believers in Google and YouTube. That's where you can really find 80 or 90% of what you need to know to do pretty much anything. So certainly encourage you to look that way when it comes to LinkedIn profiles, infographic resumes, or anything else involving your job search. Somebody I really like is Gary Vee. I'm sure a number of you are familiar with him. He's really great on all of these kinds of things and on marketing. So we talked about job boards a minute ago. I'll explain that 1%. If you can believe this, the average job posting in this country gets over 100 responses. So all things being equal, your odds of getting selected, of getting hired, let's say, are about 1% for any given job posting. So that's not obviously very good odds. The second reason we're not crazy about job boards, not that you shouldn't use them, but it shouldn't be your primary technique in terms of getting out there and looking. Employers don't necessarily like to hire that way. It's sometimes a last resort. And so they will certainly look for other employees to give them references, other people in their network. A lot of times employers, many, if not most, are always looking for talent. So if they come across somebody who they can interview, even if they're not looking, they probably will. And Kevin may talk a little bit more about that. But there's definitely a hidden job market out there. And you definitely want to avail yourself of those opportunities as well. So what are we going to do instead of job boards? This is your primary job search tool, is networking, but not in a very vague, general way, a very strategic, specific way. So you want to start wide in terms of heading out in many directions initially. And social media is a tremendous tool in that regard. You want to be, one thing that a lot of people use as a technique is to ask for advice. Not necessarily, do you want to hire me? It's more along the lines of, I'm out there doing a job search and I'd really appreciate any tips you can give me. You'll find that people are very, very open to providing advice. It's a non-threatening kind of thing. Another way that we like to network is through informational interviews. How many of you have heard the term informational interviews? And feel free to respond, and I'll keep going as you're responding. This is another thing there's tremendous information on YouTube and Google about this. But this is when you simply make an appointment with somebody in the field where you're looking for a job in order to just have a meeting, get some direction, get some advice. And again, it's a non-threatening way to network. The national stats are that for every 12 informational interviews, you get a job offer. So that's how it generally goes. Even though you're technically not looking for a job, things start to happen. My own experience at SUNY Orange is probably more like 1 out of every 5 or 6. So we've got a pretty good targeted employer network, so we can generally steer people into good situations. And by the way, when we work with people in terms of networking, I would say that the placement rate of people getting jobs in their field that they want is probably 90% plus. In other words, if we work with 10 people, I would say 9, or technically more than 9, are getting placed. So that's obviously much better odds than responding to a job board. Before you meet with anyone about anything, informational interview, whatever it is, you want to do your homework. So definitely get on their website. And when you do have these meetings, never ask a question that you could have gotten the answer to by looking at the website. And it's certainly not a mistake to jot down some things, print out some pages from the website, highlight some things, and then as you're speaking with the person, definitely not a mistake to say, you know, I was looking at your website, I have a question, and then make it clear that you did your homework.
Hey, Donald, can I piggyback off of what you just said?
Absolutely, jump in.
Because I think when you get the interview, you absolutely want to show the hiring manager and the HR person interviewing you that that you did that. I can tell you right now, I'm very confident that I got my first HR job because of the studying I did of the website, the company information. The first question out of the chute that they gave me was, "Tell me what you know about our company." And I can tell you, if the answer is, well, I think you're in manufacturer class, it's going to be a pretty rough road ahead because the interviewer is not going to take you seriously. That could be the one question that separates you from the next. What I did was I studied for it like a final, and I put days into the studying, and I had a rehearsed speech if they were going to ask me that question. And I tell you, I went into a 2-minute spiel about the company, about the size, about just as much as I could possibly remember. And the 2 interviewers looked at themselves and they said, "Thank you. It's rare that anybody even knows who we were. Thank you for taking the time to do that." And then I just felt the interview went a lot smoother. So just be ready for that question, like Don said.
Yeah, excellent point. So yeah, it's almost guaranteed to come up. And even if it doesn't, you want to bring it up because they'll ask you if you have any questions. And that's a great time to let them know that you were on their website and that you do have some questions. And by the way, you're going to be evaluated in an interview. One of the measuring sticks, so to speak, is the quality of the questions that you ask. So if you have some really interesting questions, that's a great little tool to go in with.
Essentially, and you have to have questions, and absolutely, and it shouldn't. The first one shouldn't be how much am I getting paid. You wait on that one. It's too presumptuous. It's really the questions about, you know, tell me more details about the job. What's a day like? I know no 2 days are alike. What are you like as the hiring manager? You know, what's your leadership style? You know, what do you see in terms of a successful candidate? What are the top things you're looking for in this position? And then if they give you A, B, and C, you could say, "Oh, it's interesting because I have A, and I demonstrate, you know, and talk about B and C, and make sure you're weaving in those different things." Don't assume that that person's going to be able to uncover all of your hidden skills and talents from that resume within the 30, 45 minutes, 15 minutes that they talk to you. So it's part sell mode. You don't want to be too strong about that, but you also want to make sure, you know, if they're not asking you certain questions, it's like a public relations speaker in front of a crowd. In front of reporters. They're going to make sure they get their message out regardless of what the question that is asked. So you need to make sure that you're hitting your key points about you, your skills, that extra course you took, that extra club you're in, or that internship you had. If they don't bring it up, you make sure you get that in.
Thank you. Good point. So you obviously are in a competitive situation when you're looking for a job, and you need a competitive advantage. because you're up against 20, 50, 80. Even if you do a great job of networking and really targeted networking, you're always going to be up against 4 or 5 other candidates at least. And the hiring managers are asking themselves a question as they're talking to you, which is, and they may even ask you this flat out, why should I hire you? So what is going to separate you from everybody else? Hannah Morgan, by the way, her company is Career Sherpa. Great place to visit, great website to visit. She's a real guru of all of the career development things involved in a job search. So this is the personal branding exercise. This is the most important slide I've got for you today, because there it is. You're going to ask yourself these questions and write down the answers, or do it electronically, however you want to do it. But don't start your resume until you do the personal branding exercise. That's what you want to do before you even get to the resume. You don't want to start with anything other than that. And then if you happen to have a draft already that you're going to work from, take the answers to the personal branding exercise, take your draft and combine them into, the new version of your resume. A few other quick pointers. Your classroom learning is a great start, but this is a process, and it's really just a great start. I'm sure Kevin's going to talk to you about some of the things that he looks for when he's looking for somebody. Certainly, a great thing to have in addition to the classroom learning is an internship and some hands-on experience. Everybody wants that. Again, I work with some, let's say, older job seekers, and invariably they're concerned about their age. It's like, oh my God, I'm up against these kids in their 20s, and what am I going to do about that? Well, the truth is, and again, Kevin may address this, they're not so concerned about your age. They're concerned about how current your skills are. So I recently placed somebody in a good job who was in her 70s. And the first thing she did when we started talking about it, she took some computer courses at a free lab, and she became the manager of that lab. That became her job. So she really skilled up, and then not only really got her tech skills up there, but also got a job through doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not on the age side, it's not a one size fits all. I mean, there's been times where I've looked for somebody with 15 years experience and somebody who had a really deep skill set in something that we were missing in our organization. And so, it's not that I wanted an older person. I wanted somebody who had a certain level of experience. And then there's because we just didn't have that capability in the organization. But then there's times where you say, hey, for this position, they're willing to train, they're willing to take a more junior person. It's a starting point. They have some transferable skills and they're willing to mold that person. So you'll never be able to really, it's hard to know that for sure what the person's looking for. And all you can do is just be you. Don't pretend you're something else, because just be you, and that's all you can do.
Thank you, Kevin. So a couple other just quick things before I wrap it up and turn it over to Kevin. You're probably going to get interviewed by Zoom these days with the virus. So definitely get comfortable in that Zoom medium and practice, and make sure you're ready for that kind of interview. Also, make your space Zoom ready. Remember that you want something that's clean and in order. You're looking at what's in front of you, and they are looking at you and what's in back of you. So things that I have actually experienced when interviewing people on Zoom, things I've seen and heard are dogs barking, cats wandering onto the computer or onto the person's lap, family members, friends wandering around in the background, loud video games going on in the next room, phones ringing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, definitely turn your phone off. If you're home, unplug your phone so the home phone doesn't work if you happen to have one. And you get the idea. Just really make sure you're not going to have any of those little disasters happen while the interview is going on. So two other points. You will see that most all successful people have a really healthy work-life balance, and good to keep that in mind. That having been said, when it's game on, just push and push and push and persist, and just stay with it and keep coming until you get where you want to be.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad that you all are joining us today. I have the pleasure of introducing to you Kevin McFarland. He is a graduate of SUNY Orange. He graduated in 1997 with an AAS in business management, and he has 13 plus years actually, of human resource experience. He's currently the director of human resources for SHOT North America, Inc. And he's going to talk to you a little bit today about some of the experiences that he has. And I look forward to hearing from him. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you, Kevin. Looks like you are all set.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you, Donald. Thank you, Jennifer and SUNY Orange for the honor of being here. I remember taking classes along, many years ago and thinking to myself, boy, someday it'd be great to come back and teach or do something like that. So this is truly an honor for me to be able to have this opportunity to talk to all of you. And I appreciate you taking the time to even show up to these things. I remember it was always hard to balance those things. And so I really appreciate you taking the time today. And I hope that I give you your money's worth with what I say. And please stop at any point if you have any questions. And I can't echo what Donald said enough. And I agree with everything he said. This is just a little bit about my background, and I won't bore you with that. So these days, I found this on the internet, and this just goes to show how overwhelming this whole process can be. I think right now there's at least 10 million Americans that are unemployed. And so Donald is right. It's true. It is a true competition. You have competition in your classes. You have competition in the workplace. There's, when it comes to getting jobs, getting pay increases, there's only so much money to go around. And so the competition never stops. You want to be the best. You want to be the best no matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're working at McDonald's, taking out the trash. You be the best no matter where you're put in your life at that moment. You be the best, because that will always carry yourself no matter what. You can't teach work ethic. You can't teach heart. You can't teach, caring about what it is that you're doing, conscientiousness. People who are high on conscientiousness tend to do well. And the people that really take these things seriously you can beat people who are super talented or even more talented than you. But there's something about desire, energy, eagerness, enthusiasm, and you want all of that to show through in your job search. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we go along. And Donald, jump in if at any point, you want to add something. So again, you have Glass. You've heard of probably most of these. Some of these I've never heard of, to be honest with you. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, those I know. ZipRecruiter, we know. Monster, all of that. Google, those are all great places to search, but it's not everything. There's only part of it. And I'm going to give you the perspective of the job search side, but I'm also going to give you the perspective of, okay, now you got the job. What are people like me looking for? What are the hiring managers that I've had the pleasure of working with throughout my 13 years in HR? What do I remember about what they look for, right? So I'll try to give you some key points and takeaways as well. As Donald said, the career brainstorming. Start with what it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for your first job, that's not necessarily a career-oriented type of job. It's just kind of, hey, I need to get a job while I'm in school and build some skills and that sort of thing. That's okay. I tell people, one time I was doing some university recruiting up at Alfred University looking for engineers. And I remember a student who was sort of embarrassed that he grew up on a farm. And when I was interviewing him, he was a very nice young man. And he said, I never really put it, he didn't have it on his resume, but I discovered it by talking to him. And I said, you really should put that down on your resume. And he said, well, why? And I said, because you know what working on a farm tells me? It tells me you know how to get up early, you know how to work. Those animals on that farm, they don't care that you're sick. They need you every day, and you got to show up. So it's things like that. So put everything on your resume. Put more. You could always cut it down, but put it on your resume so that people can see that. So you also want to, so with the career brainstorming, start there. What it is you want to do. What is your dream job? Start with your dream job and go from there. And another piece of it is be willing to start at the bottom. I'm director of HR today after 13 years, but I didn't start there. I started at the bottom. And the one thing that I thought about when I was looking for jobs was there was no job that I was too good for. There was no such thing. It was, if I get this job, what am I becoming on the job? What is it going to look like? What am I going to look like in 3 years? Who am I working for? I would rather, and I was always been in the position, especially early on, where money was very important. But I took jobs where maybe I made a few thousand less, but I knew that I would be much further ahead 3 years from now because of where and who I was working for. So don't ever rule out anything. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice. Don't rule out jobs. Think about the person you're working for. Think about what you're becoming. Think about the company. All those different things. Be okay with starting at the bottom. There's honor in that, in starting, because also someday if you want to be a manager, or a director, starting at the bottom is great because you'll be managing those same people that were starting at the bottom. And then when they tell you they can't do a certain job or a task, or you're trying to assign work to them, and they say, oh, this takes 2 hours to do, or that's impossible, you know the answer to that. You know that what that job is like because you've done it. And you'll also get more respect as a supervisor, manager, director, or a vice president because you've done it and you can relate. So, prepare and organize. Yeah, certainly update the resume, develop your company target list of companies. You want your LinkedIn profile. Those are all the basics. Those are things. I want to just show you when it comes to resumes. I'll show you what mine looks like. Now, again, I've been out of school for 20 years. So my resume is going to be a little bit different than some others. And it's just very, it's general. It's got the basics up top. It's got the degrees here. And then it starts with an employment history. I myself like to put a little bit of a company description under there if I can. I have had received feedback that the recruiter or the company was very happy that I did that, because then they understand what exactly the company is and the context. And again, this is probably a little long, I would think. I probably could shorten this if I'm really being hard on myself, because
Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt, just real quick. I think just share screen, it's probably in front of the screen. Yeah, it didn't make the shift. Okay. That's okay. I just wanted to point it out in case you were
yes,
wanting us to look at something in particular.
Let me try it again. Let's see if I can
just switch the share to a new share.
Let's see.
Window.
Share. Oh, new share.
There you go.
Okay, here we go.
Give it a second.
And here we go.
There it is.
Sorry about that, folks. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you could see it's what I had mentioned before. So as I scroll down, yeah, it's got the title. If I have one company and you have had 2 positions, you want to show that under the one company so that you can show that you had some promotion. Or that you were promoted, or that you were given more responsibility. There's always this question, should it be more than 1 page? Should it be, what's the right length of a resume? I think it depends how far you are in your career. Obviously, if you're coming right out of school, I think 1 page is appropriate. As you build your career, up to 2 pages. I have seen, especially if I was hiring R&D scientists, I've seen 4- and 5-page resumes, and I'll be honest, I'm not reading it. I'm not reading all of that. I'm skimming it. Sometimes, and Donald mentioned before, about 100 applications roughly per position. At my last company, where they were more entry-level types of jobs, I can tell you that that number absolutely, 100. I would come into my office, sit down, go into our electronic applicant tracking system, look at resumes that day, and I can tell you I was scrolling very, very quickly. So it's got to catch the hiring manager's attention or HR real fast. Otherwise, it just gets passed over. And you could see there was different companies, et cetera. And I guess I'm up to 3 pages. I don't know. Maybe somebody wouldn't even look at this. I don't even know. But and then there's some additional information. If you're good at any, you took any courses, you speak any additional languages, you have any different computer programs you've worked with, you certainly want to put that. Here's the thing. Don't put, you see how I put basic proficiency in German? The Americans tend to overinflate their resume. And then what happens is you get into an interview and you get caught. Or you get, and what happens is if you get caught early enough in the interview, it's probably going to be even shorter because someone's going to just say, look, they fluff their resume and this, they don't know Excel, or imagine I said I'm fluent in German and then I can only speak, hello or order a beer, automatically my credibility is shot. So that interview probably won't last long. So just be accurate on your resume, be truthful. That's some advice I can give you as well. I'm going to attempt to go back and share the slides. Go back to that.
There you are.
Great, thanks. Okay, so you have all that. I can tell you some of the best ways that I've ever gotten a position or know people that have even gotten a position. Temp agencies, agency recruiters, and internships. What do I mean by temp agencies? Temp agencies are a wonderful resource because you have somebody advocating for you on your behalf. And what happens is sometimes a company will hire someone through a temp agency to do one thing, and they'll, at the end of that assignment, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's only a project or something. What they'll do is they may keep you on. They may have other positions and want to and bring you to that, put you into that position, or keep, for example, my wife, she made a transition not that few years back from the not-for-profit industry, and she just got kind of burnt out on it and said, I need something different. I've been doing that for 15 years. I had a relationship with a temp agency, NAP Consultants, and so she went and had a phone interview with them, talked to them, and the woman loved her, just loved her personality, everything, and her skill set. And so they presented her for this, it was sort of like a project management role for a merger and acquisition they were doing. But when that was done, they had seen she had some experience in payroll and human resources, and they said, hey, would you like this role in human resources? And so then that morphed into that. Well, 5 years later, she was the director of HR. So temp agencies are a great way to get your foot in the door. Agency recruiters as well. Agency recruiter is someone who takes a commission if they place you in a job. My company happens to use a lot of agency recruiting partners because, frankly, we're small in terms of our HR staff. We just don't have the time to go through that full-blown recruiting process like that. So we rely on an agency recruiter to take a commission if they place somebody with us. And so now you have another person advocating on your behalf. So if you can get with a recruiter or a temp agency, that's a way, in addition to the job board search, in addition to applying directly, use those opportunities as well. You want to use a multifaceted approach. No one size fits all, not just one channel. You want to use as many channels as possible and treat this like a job. Finding a job is like a job. And if you think of it that way, your frustration level, I think, will decrease because on a job you have good days and bad days. And then finally, if you're fortunate enough to get an internship, I, on the other hand, was not. I had to work all the way through school. It just, the cards were not dealt that way for me. So, but I think the agency recruiter route and the temp agencies is what were really helpful instead for me in my career. practice your interview skills. I mean, so many people spend so much time on landing the interview, but yet don't practice the interview. It's not easy. And the more you go on, the more interviews you get, the better the practice, the better off you are. I've gotten a lot more no's than I've gotten yeses in my life. And that's why you need to stay positive. When you get rejected, it really stinks. It hurts. But if you get feedback, if you're able to get feedback on why you got rejected for an interview and then use that feedback to improve in that area, I can tell you I've had that situation. I won't bore you with it or get into the details, but that happened to me. And there was a deficiency that I had that they told me about. And I tell you what, it made me very angry. I was so angry that I wanted to prove them wrong. So much so that I stepped up my game. I studied more. I skilled up even more in that area as Donald recommended. And I said to myself, you know what? Tell me I can't do something and I'm going to do it. And I've always been spiteful like that to prove people wrong. And it's always lit a fire under me. And you know what? I got a job the next time around that was better than had I got that job. I was grateful I didn't get it. So you're going to get a lot of no's, but you got to stay positive. Otherwise, because this thing is a marathon. Donald, did you want to mention anything or jump in at all?
No, I think we covered I obviously concur with what you're saying about using multiple channels. You definitely want to have a five-pronged approach when you're heading out there. There's a lot of different ways you're going to find your way. And when you do head out in 4 or 5 different directions, generally 1 or 2 of them really materialize, and then that's where you end up going.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other, you want to develop and track all your search activities, use a spreadsheet, that sort of thing. Master networker. There's this option on LinkedIn. I'm sure all of you have seen it when you connect with somebody or when you look up a company. If there is somebody who's connected in your LinkedIn network to that company and you know them, if they're one of your former classmates, alum, that's why you treat all your classmates well. You be nice to everybody and you take care of them. You just never know, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 months from now, knowing a specific individual could potentially help get you in the door. So as my mother always said, don't ever burn any bridges with people because you just never know when you're going to need that again. So become a master networker. And that doesn't mean a salesperson, a used car salesperson. It just means, create relationships with people, take care of people, fill their needs quickly and elegantly, have a servant mindset, and it comes back to you. I don't know why. It's a law that I have observed and noticed over my career is just take care of people, and somehow some of that will come back to you. And it'll come to you at the time, probably in your greatest need, your greatest moment of need. It's really interesting how that law works. You want to make yourself easy to find on the internet. So, and even I can improve on this, the LinkedIn, I'm definitely there, but I'm probably not on some of the other social media channels as much. But you can set up alerts. Indeed is great with that. And post your resume to Indeed. Post your resume to some of these job sites, because what will also happen is HR will subscribe to Indeed and pay to go in and search their databases as well. LinkedIn, same thing. You can run like a Google search on LinkedIn. There's a tool where there's a lot of companies that are using LinkedIn only nowadays, where they don't even use the agency recruiters. What they'll do is they will buy a subscription to the LinkedIn search tool, and it costs several thousand a year, but I could use keywords and I could set up a profile I'm looking for in a certain geography, industry, boom, and I can get search results, and then I can message you on LinkedIn. So definitely you want to have your LinkedIn profile up to date. You can, oh, gee, I don't know where to start with a LinkedIn profile. Just mirror your resume, start there. That's really all it's got to look like. And so, yeah, the other thing is be careful though for scams when you set up alerts or when you post your resume to these different sites. Be very careful because you'll get those at home, work from home, data entry types of jobs. And if you have an employer trying to recruit you through that, and yet they don't talk to you and they're going through a Telegram message app and just know that that's a scam. So
Kevin, we do have a question with regard to where you're going with Indeed and the search. We have a question from Greg McLeod. Kevin, do you use any software to whittle down the applicant pool? And how important are keywords to helping getting your resume tossed out by a computer algorithm?
Yeah, good one. I myself do not use algorithms. I think my company, it's a mid-size organization. So it's 16,000 employees worldwide, 2,500 in the US, Canada, Mexico. And in my region, I'm probably responsible for a couple of business units with recruiting. So my traffic for my positions are not so large that I need to use that. Now, does Microsoft, Boeing, the big ones, the Fortune 500 and 50s probably? Yeah, they probably do. So I'm a little leery of that, because sometimes if you knock people out using that kind of a computer or algorithms, an employer can actually possibly run afoul of any hiring laws because I may inadvertently weed out a population that is protected. So I tend not to. The one thing we do that is very common are knockout questions. So are you over the age of 18, right? Because sometimes, you have to be over 18 to work in certain situations. Or if there's a citizenship requirement, we happen to be a defense contractor in some locations. So, I can't hire non-US citizens or non-green card holders because it's just I can't do that as part of the defense contracts. The defense contractors don't want that, or the US government doesn't want that. So there are what's called knockout questions. So, and if you answer yes or no to some of those, the system is designed to just reject your application automatically. But I imagine, to answer your question, Greg, there are companies that use it, and you definitely want to, the best that you can, search engine optimize your resume with certain keywords. That doesn't mean throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and hope it sticks. But if you're an engineer, or if you're into statistics, let's say, and you use Excel, and you have a proficiency in Excel or Minitab or some of these other programs, put that down. The other thing, don't machine gun your resume to everything without really looking at the ad. Look at the job posting, look at the keywords they're looking for, see if you can marry some of those keywords into your resume. That's the key. You want to think of it as you're from to. You're here right now. Where do you want to go? I want to be a computer programmer. Okay, let me go look at some data warehouse positions online. You can start there and say, okay, well, if I want to be a data warehouse associate, if I want to be a help desk associate, they want this experience, that experience. Let me go back to my resume and see if I have that. If I don't, well, now I know where I need experience. And maybe I skill up with books. Maybe I skill up with YouTube videos. Maybe I skill up with training courses. And, if I can ever get an opportunity to get some hand-on practical experience with that, then I do that as well. So it's like a gap analysis. That's where you got to look at it. That's that career brainstorming, that self-analysis is, where are you today and what skills do you have? And if there's certain skills you're missing, how do you get them? And there's many ways to.
It's a great segue to another question we have, Kevin, from Carly Glass. Are there any items outside of education and relevant work experience that look great and stand out on a resume, as in participating in certain programs, or perhaps even, I would add, volunteer work that may really speak to an opportunity?
Put it all down, because you just never know what is going to catch the eye of an HR professional or that hiring manager. I'm not saying put down your religion. I'm not saying put all that. You want to be careful about that, because that's all protected. And yes, there are people that probably are biased in their minds. I'm biased towards one thing, and that's green, the color green. And that is, I'm going to hire the best person. I don't care where they come from, what they are. It does not matter. And if hiring manager and the HR person truly has the company, the best needs of, or the company, if they're putting that company first, they are hiring the best. They should not be thinking like that. because you're doing your company a disservice. Not only is it wrong, that's a given, but you want the talent in the organization that's going to help make that company money. And that's what I'm biased toward, is the color green. And if I see somebody who has the talent to bring, that position, that job function to the next level, well, I don't care what they are. I am not going to hire them. So I would say put it down. Put down, if you volunteered, you never know it's just amazing. You never know what someone's going to pick up on. I'm trying to think. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know I've had experiences where just myself, where someone has picked out something on my resume that I thought was completely stupid, and they picked up on it and they liked it. Actually, this isn't stupid, but for example, when I was going into HR, and an agency recruiter helped me get that job. I had worked for 6 years at Fordham University, Marist College, SUNY New Paltz as a financial aid counselor, student employment coordinator. It just so happened that the gentleman that hired me for my first HR position, one of his goals, he had 5 goals for his bonus. One of them, which was 20% of his goal, was to build a university relations program in the US. They had no experience with university relations. I had no experience with HR. He looked at me and said, "Hey, this guy seems moldable. He's energetic. He's a go-getter. And he knows the lay of the land when it comes to university relations. Yeah, we'll start there. We'll have him build that and we can teach him the HR." Now, had I not put that financial aid and student employment coordinating down, would I have gotten that job? Probably not. So the point is, put it all down. You just never know.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Go ahead,
Jen,
Don.
just to add something, when Kevin was talking about those applicant tracking systems, that's another big vote for networking, because if you get yourself networked into an interview, you just found a workaround to those applicant tracking systems, and it won't even be an issue. So again, if you can get referred to somebody and get that interview that way, great way to work around the applicant tracking system.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because unfortunately you're just one of several numbers. It stinks, and I hate to say that, but you can get lost in those things. Interview while you have a job. It's so much easier to interview when you have a job versus not having a job. It's not always possible, but if you can, you just go in more relaxed versus coming in desperate. And sometimes people will play it safe in an interview, and I can always tell when someone's just playing it safe, and I need to get this job, and you can just feel that. These are just some things that we look for in the resume. Now you've searched, now you got the there's the marketing, the typing, the language. I mean, all that. I mean, that's just standard. It's got to be proofread. It's got to be written well. We know that. The appearance, all that stuff is a relevant experience. I mean, they're going to look for things like related experience. When I train hiring managers, it's related experience in education, evaluate for transferable skills, look at the chronology of events, look at gaps in employment. Nowadays, gaps are more common than they used to be. That used to be one of those things back in old school days where you have a gap in employment, that's bad. Well, we all know that that's not the case anymore. Don't be a job hopper. You're going to have at least one of those in a career where you're less than a year somewhere. Try to stick it out if you can. If you can get 2 and 3 years on a resume, on a location, on a company, that's great. Again, it doesn't mean you have to, and if it's a horrible situation, you got to do what you got to do. But you don't want to be one of, if I see somebody who's jumped around too much, I get a little nervous about that. Donald, anything you want to add on this slide before I jump to the next slide? And I'm being aware of our time as well here.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. This is my last slide. This is a huge slide, and there's a lot here. These are just some of the types of questions that you might get. Behavior-based questions. We could spend another hour on this, so I'm going to try to be quick. When I train hiring managers, what I say is in the interview, open it and create a favorable environment. Tell them while they're here what the plan is for the interview. You probably will start off with a phone interview because it's less investment. to bring somebody, to talk to somebody on the phone. And then we decide if we're going to bring somebody in. And then you want to keep it comfortable and conversational, explain the interview process, ask behavioral questions. And then at the end, you want to ask for questions, sell the company, describe the next steps, etc. And so that's something you want to really do. If it's a good interviewer, they are letting you talk 80% of the time and they're talking 20%. I've seen interviewers where they're so excited about the position, they want to tell you everything, and then they don't get a good understanding of you or your background. But there's different competencies, different types of questions here. I won't get into all of that, but probably the most common is the tell me about a time where ... So there's just so much here. I don't even have time to go through it, but are there any other questions I can answer for you? This was my last slide, but I did want to leave some time for questions, and certainly you're welcome to these slides.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm taking a look at the chat and I don't see any questions right now, but I will ask perhaps, what is the best way for someone to practice their interviewing skills? Maybe that would be some good guidance. Sure.
Start at the career office. They've done this before many, many times. I would say if you happen to know somebody who interviews for a living, maybe they're a manager somewhere and they've had to conduct some interviews, you can try that. Let me tell you something. This is going to sound simple. YouTube. I have learned so much on YouTube. The SHRM website, Society for Human Resource Management. There's things like that. If you ever are lucky enough to take a training course that trains people how to interview others, attend that, because it's kind of like the behind the scenes, the hidden secrets. And then you can apply that for yourself. Those are just some things that come off the top of my head anyway.
Kevin, we have a tool. We actually have a tool called Big Interview on our website.
Oh, that's great.
And you can actually practice with the camera and record yourself and then play it back. And a lot of our students find it very helpful because they get to do some actual kind of live practice as a person on the screen asking you questions.
Did you say that's videotaped or something? Did you say that?
Yeah, you get yourself videotaped.
I will tell you that although brutal and hard to stomach, videotape types of things are training is, there's so much valuable feedback. I took a negotiations course once and they videoed you and I could barely look at the screen because it was just chilling. I sound like that, I look like that. It's so hard, but the immediate feedback is just so valuable. There's nothing like visual immediate feedback like that. If you can stomach it, do it. Go for it.
Yeah, and also we have a great network. We've got some really awesome retired CEOs and such who are always happy to, they volunteer and they'll be happy to practice with you if that's something you want to do.
Yeah. The key
John, could you just reiterate to our participants access to Big Interview, just so that everyone's aware and that we can include that in the materials as well?
Sure. If you go to the SUNY Orange website and then find your way to student experience, and under that header in the bottom left drop-down menu, you'll see careers and internships. If you click on that, that'll bring you to our homepage. And on that homepage, you'll have all the tools that I'm talking about available to you. And that's where you find Big Interview.
Wonderful. Lucinda Fleming just put that in the chat. And also you have access and you can register with your SUNY Orange credentials.
Another thought that came to mind just on this whole process, and in your career, find experts, find mentors, find examples, role models, people that are where you want to be, and absorb everything about them, imitate them, model them. How do they talk? What do they say? What are their behaviors? What are their habits? Because success is something that can be copied, and it's looking for a good home to reside in. Success. It's looking for a place to stay. And, none of us are born successful. It's all you got to work at that. And so I was not, I knew nothing about HR when I was 30 years old. I got into it at 30. It wasn't even in my 20s. But I had a desire to be the best at it. I loved it. And I was fortunate to work for some really good bosses. I was fortunate to work for some really rough bosses. And I learned just as much from them as I did from the ones that I loved. So find those people that are your role, that you know, and see if you can just use them as role models. And they don't have to be in person with you. They can be people you look up to online somewhere, that sort of thing. TED Talks are wonderful. But you know, you got to be self-confident. You have to, you got to put a lot of good success behaviors and practices in place so that when you get on that job, you're ready. You know, sometimes I always felt like I had to grow a little bit before I was ready for that next job. Almost like I didn't get that job because it wasn't ready. You know, I always said early in my career, like, I guess 2 years into HR, I looked at a position and I said, oh, I could do that. I want to do that. I want to be the manager there. And years later, I look back and I say, thank God I didn't get it because I was not ready. I would have failed. And so sometimes you don't get it until you're ready. Don't know why that happens. It just happens sometimes, at least for me. So be willing to grow. Like Donald said, it never stops. You never stop learning. This is just your starting point. Be a lifelong learner. Be a lifelong learner on the job. Have passion for what you're doing. Try to anyway. And if you can mix work with something you love, you're way ahead of 99% of everybody else because it doesn't happen all the time. So those are just some things that come to mind.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all of that valuable information, Don. It is 1 o'clock right now. I think some of our students may have to head to class soon. So I'll turn it back to you, Don, to close us out.
Okay, thank you, Dana. If any of you have any additional questions, you're welcome to submit them. You've got all kinds of links going here. Jen DeAndrea is going to be in touch with you, sending you things, sending you the PowerPoints. So do feel free to get back to us. My contact info is on the slides. If there's anything you want from me, Kevin's is on his slides. So be happy to continue to follow up with you if you have any additional needs.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, everyone. Kevin, thank you for joining us as well as our special guest. Lots of great information. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.